One of the reviews you wanted to see on Autogefühl is the new Mercedes CLA Shooting Brake. This design estate concept will tell you all about this new generation in the exterior, interior and the driving experience. Today here with Thomas. And please join us, as you know, in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! In the front, CLA Shooting Brake and the CLA Coupe are not really different, look the same. Also depends on the trim level. Here today with the black pin grille, you know, there's also then the diamond pin grille available, for example, in the Sportier trim, so you can pick that. You can see the hood has this area in the front there, and then it's, you know, surrounded here, this styling that was beforehand reserved for AMG models, so a sporty styling on the hood, also with a lot of accentuations on the hood. That's pretty cool. Headlamps still come halogen as base, and then optional LED and optional, these here, the multi-beam LED. And one of my favorite colors is not only Thomas Blue, but also this mountain gray Magno color that Mercedes offers with this matte painting. It's a very cool thing. Disadvantage, you cannot polish it when you have some minor scratches. Advantage, when it's just raining, it's usually somewhat cleaning itself. So yeah, pro and con, but fancy surely is. 4,69 m, 15'4" or 184 inches is the length. That's about 5 centimeters more than the predecessor, or about 2.5 inches. And the length of the CLA Coupe or CLA Sedan, however you want to call it, is actually the very same. So it's this rear overhang that is different with this estate coupe form, so to say, a very special one, strong shoulders. So it is definitely a design object and could be this compromise between a sporty special look and still offering the estate room in the trunk. Then the length, you also have to think about, it's even a little bit longer than a C-Class. Why would they do that? Well, interesting product strategy, that's definitely, but comparison to the C-Class here, the front hood is a little bit shorter, then the room and the space, especially in the rear area, is a little bit better used. Wheels come from 16 to 19 inch. These here are the optional 18-inch ones. Is a rather covered look overall, but I think it overall also fits to the vehicle. Here today with chrome around the windows. If you pick a night package, you can also get it in a dark styling, but I think this way it looks more elegant. So what do you think about the design approach here? In the rear there's a new tail lamp design, a little bit more horizontal. This is CLA 250, soon more about the engines, and really rather like a raindrop design, so round in the rear. By the way, you open the trunk by flipping the Mercedes logo. We'll soon of course do that too. And in the lower part, well, yeah, this is where the fake exhaust police has to attack once more. This one here completely fake, and the other side also completely fake. The exhaust underneath. Not sure if this is really necessary. Suspension wise, by the way, a base suspension, fixed one, then sport suspension 15 mm lower, and then there's an optional adaptive suspension. Gas struts, take this Golf. Well, but you also pay even more money here for this CLA. Engines, you get a 1.4 liter turbo petrol engine from Renault, or this 2 liter 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine from Mercedes, starting with the CLA 220, and then optional the 250 here we see. This one then with 225 horsepower, optional all-wheel drive. We have that here today. Is it really necessary? Not really, because it's front-wheel biased anyway, and then some torque is also distributed to the rear, but you don't really notice it is that much while driving. 7-speed dual clutch transmission. And on the diesel side, you either get a 1.5 liter diesel or a 2 liter 4-cylinder diesel that is then starting with the 200D or the 220D. And of course, there are also performance models available, the petrol with the 35 AMG or the 45 AMG. Basically still the same 2 liter 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine, but then with even more horsepower. of all, door closing sound. Well, actually quite solid, because this is a coupe style door, so without a frame. Usually they sound weird, but in this case actually quite nice. And there we can see it once again. This is of course giving some more elegance to the styling. Inside of the door, soft touch with the Artico leatherette here, beautifully done. Seat control from the inside of the door as well. And we have here this, bright interior deco element. I think it's a quite sporty styling. Then here all new cockpit interior, and we'll soon talk about the different screen sizes that are available. Here round turbine vents. Seats, they are available with different surface materials, and it's a great offering of Mercedes here. They offer fabric Artico leatherette mix, a full Artico seat, a full Artico sport seat. This one here actually, well, what is it? Is it the animal skin or is it the Artico? And it's really hard to tell because both seats look almost identical, but here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the animal skin seat. If there would be 3 stripes, this would be the same seat with Artico leatherette animal free. But the Artico or MB Tech seat of course costs less and still do the very same good job. So really hard to differentiate nowadays. Then we can also spare the animals of course. But if you can pick the fabric seat, by the way, go for that one also for practical reasons, because it's cooler in summer and warmer in winter. Getting inside, fairly easy. If you think about C-Class or this, I mean, this is even a little bit longer, as I said, than the C-Class, but I feel that the front seating position, if you compare then A-Class or CLA Shooting Brake to the C-Class, is to me as a tall person a little bit better in a mid-size vehicle like the C-Class. This will not play such an effect if you're a little bit smaller than me, then, it won't matter that much. Then you have here an advantage that you have the more modern infotainment system and so on. This can also speak for that. Steering wheel can be controlled in a manual way, a very smooth process, up and down and so on. The height here, when I'm sitting here, still a lot of headroom left, at least in the front. We'll see how it plays out in the rear. 1.86 m or 6'1". So I think you can get a decent position here in the front. There are different seats available, as I told you earlier, also seat form-wise. Here separate head restraint, but also sport seat with an integrated head restraint. This one here has seat heating. There's also this black and white seat available that has the integrated head restraint and has seat cooling and seat heating with a leatherette surface. That will also be an interesting solution we had in a different CLA test vehicle earlier. This is the car key, by the way, slim and light, so overall I think like it. This is the interior overview. You start with a 7-inch left and right, optional 10.25-inch on the right, and then the optional setup like this, 2 times 10.25-inch. That's it. And then you have the full digitalization unit. However, the base unit already supports the MBUX infotainment system, also with the voice input, where you can say like, "Hey Mercedes,
how may I help you?
Drive me to Berlin."
I am starting route guidance to Berlin.
Yeah, that's of course very, and I think at the moment leading on the market here, this voice activation system. The Tesla Model 3 with the upgraded one is also quite cool. You can do a lot with that. But among the classic manufacturers, this one definitely leading one, if not overall. You can also already see something of the front view camera. There's of course also a rear view camera available, and this automatically comes up when you turn on the car and then put in the reverse gear. Very nice resolution here. Soon more deals to the screen, both left and right. Let's continue here. Central forms here on the dashboard, all soft touch, great build quality here in this area. Nice with the round turbine vents. Not sure this piano lacquer used here. So many people say like, I don't really like it, but manufacturers still do it. Why would they still do it? I don't know. What's cool is on the steering wheel, left side here for the cruise control. It's an easy control, and with the thumb you can control the digital instruments. On the right thumb here you can control of that screen, and a nice manual volume knob here too. You can also start the voice input here with the button. Now don't have to say the activation word. The climate unit is still separate. I like that, also with a nice clicking sound, and really want to be able to use the AC unit like this. Then USB-C charger and connector to Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. and an inductive charging pad is also available, but I think not really making sense because you have the cable connected then anyway all the time. Adaptive cup holders, and then this touchpad where you would have the next control possibility for the screen. Left next to it, the drive mode selector, soon talking a little bit more with driving modes when driving the car. And then there's this middle armrest with the split opening and some more space underneath, and two more USB-C chargers, but charging only. And well, in the upper area, the normal mirror is a little bit basic, but this crystalline look on the top of the ceiling, that is very cool. And here we go with screen details. You can see here is a nice visualization also for the map. There we go. And then, for example, here using the touch settings for, no, I don't, no, clicked on store, but that's also live reviewing. You see here when the system lags a little bit behind, you should never click on store. I'm not sure what the sense for that, I don't know. So settings, here you can activate some of the assistance systems, for example, with a quick access or more in-depth right here. You can have some lights information, and if you have the ambient lighting, you can also set it right there. System will be changing the language, for example, also the styles, and style change is not only possible for the instruments but also for the whole thing. So when I pick the sports styling here, also the right part goes in this sports styling mode. It's actually quite decent. When you have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto connected, it appears up there, and then it looks like this. I just have to unlock the phone here at the moment. There we go. So, and the sound system is actually quite bass heavy, I have to say, but actually quite decent. And the instruments here are also quite fancy, all digital then in this setup. You can also change what you want to see, like this here, and all three sides actually. I rather like to keep it a little bit classic like it is here at the moment. But in the middle part you can also have, for example, the GPS map. So for commands right there, this is possible. Also assistant systems, or then you can change all the stylings right here. What we didn't show you yet is, for example, a progressive styling. But you know, I rather prefer the classic ones. Or which one would you prefer? Classic or sport or progressive? Then there's the head-up display, is a good option. Everything in line of sight, not only sweet, but also the GPS commands when you have a route mounted. Now on the rear, first of all, soft touch also into the doors, beautifully done. And then this is the big advantage if you compare this generation to the previous generation CLA. Here, still some legroom left, that's good. And probably even a little bit better, or at least the same than in the C-Class. Then headroom is also okay in the Shooting Brake. I can even lean backwards and put my spine up and still can put a hand over my head. This is an advantage if you compare it to the Coupe, so it's better here in the rear, not so much compromise, so, and I think feel quite comfortable in here. Outside ISOFIX, you can flip the seats already from here. In the middle part, there's this ski hatch, just a single part you can fold out, no armrest whatsoever. And then here you have a separate climate unit and two more USB-C devices. Trunk check, today here with a manual hatch. So the advantage here for the Shooting Brake is 505 liters instead of 460 liters for the CLA Coupe. So that's the difference, a little bit more capacity. You can see here this slider here is very well done because I like this, or press it once and it slides back. And I also put some luggage inside. You can see it fits here also in a vertical way with the cabin trolley like this. And I already flipped one of the sides that you can reach through. It's a 1/3 2/3 split, or the middle one just for the ski hatch that you can use as well. And you're not that limited in height here. It's actually still quite okay. And underneath, some repair equipment. The only thing is here, like a very high loading sill, and this area is also not too wide then, so it's not the best estate trunk. Of course, the design is somewhat a compromise. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Mercedes CLA Shooting Brake. CLA 250 means a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, 225 horsepower, 6.3 seconds is the acceleration figure, 200 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. We also have the adaptive suspension in here, the optional one, together the ride with 18-inch wheels. And talking about that ride, the adaptive suspension is definitely a good upgrade. However, the base suspension is also just fine. However, with the compact class models, basically with every manufacturer, the thing is that when you go for a base entry engine, you often also get the more basic rear axle. However, if you go for a bigger size engine, then you also get sophisticated rear axles. They just, combine it with the pricing and the trim and so on. So have to pay attention to that. So when I talk about that the base suspension is good, then I mean the one that is also accounting for the bigger engines. Well, the adaptive suspension here gives us a little bit more choice. The ride would be a little bit more comfortable if we would have 17-inch wheels, for example. And the CLA and the CLA Shooting Brake in general, they are not set so soft. So it is rather a sporty setup suspension-wise. That's also the reason why some bumps can get through, even through the adaptive suspension. So this is rather set on that you have a little bit more fun in driving. And that's actually the case. Although this is an estate, you don't really feel it while driving. If you ask me if there's a significant difference in driving the Shooting Brake and the CLA sedan, or CLA Coupe, however you want to call it, maybe, subjective scale, maybe a little bit. The classic form is a little bit better as for the rigidity and so on, but it's a subtle difference, so it's not a huge difference. It would rather be a design question, and if you rather want to have this kind of trunk or the other normal CLA trunk. So that's as for that. And also, if you compare it to a normal A-Class, this one here is of course a little longer. You do feel that. So a normal A-Class would drive sportier, a little bit more fun, but of course has less space than inside. So this is definitely an interesting compromise here, so keeping rather still a sporty feeling and having this design approach on the exterior, but still being a somewhat estate car, or as they then call it, Shooting Brake. Very interesting, definitely. So about the fuel economy here with the with the 250 model, it's about 7.5 or 8 liters on 100 kilometers. That's something a little bit more than 30 mpg US and a little bit less than 40 mpg UK. And that's not exactly good. It's not a big engine, it's not a big car, it's not too heavy, so we cannot really say that this petrol engine would be efficient. And that is a consumption figure with, let's say, rather well driven efficiency wise, that German efficiency thing there. Yeah, about that. So yeah, so that's one of the criticism points, definitely, together with the very high pricing. Other than that, it's really very good to drive this vehicle. The steering feeling is also rather natural. It's not super progressive, so you do need some, input on the steering, but there's no dead zone area, so every degree counts, and it is a very smooth steering process. The same also counts for the shifting. This automatic gearbox here is very smooth in the transitions. You hardly ever feel that there would be anything, so that's pretty cool. You can of course also set a sport mode where you intend to feel it a little bit more. Always be cautious here when the bus is stopping, maybe someone behind it waiting to cross the street. So we also head out to the motorway very soon and show you first acceleration, then test some of the assistance systems, and then we'll also have a part today where we floor it all out, talk about the wind noise at a very high speed, and also show you something more of the acceleration of this engine, what it's capable of, and how the car also handles then at higher speeds. That's of course always very relevant. As for the visibility, it's not too bad. I mean, from the exterior it looks like you can't see short, but to the rear it's quite decent, The only thing is here, like the B-pillar is very thick, and that's why you really need the blind spot monitor, so I would not get a car without that one. And and I can show you how it works when we approach the motorway very soon. When we first get in this roundabout, there you can see how the steering is aligned to the road. You see it's not one-to-one. You have to steer a little bit more than the corner goes. Sometimes nowadays progressive steering ratios are in a way that they really, comply to the degree of the corner on the road and the degree here of the steering wheel, but that's indeed not really the case here. It's actually a matter of preference what you do prefer. When I'm a little bit going right and left here, it's actually quite fun. And again, as I said, the suspension quite stiff, so you don't have too much leaning to the left and the right. I think still a fun ride. So they try to master this sportiness and comfort compromise, but as I said, they rather tuned it a little bit stiff, a little bit sportier than I would expect what would be useful, So I think it would be more useful if they stress the comfort a little bit more. But that's of course also a matter of preference. Here the start-stop function is activated right here, of course. I have also the rather subtle styling there. You can also, as I shown in the interior, the sport styling for the digital instruments. Very well to read. Also what I can see in the head-up display is very well to read. I already get now to the sports mode. This will give us a little bit more boost on the motorway now, definitely. When I leave my foot here on the brake, then engine jumps on and off again. And if you ask yourself if it's good that the engine is going on, off, no, it's not. Definitely not. So now we're getting on the motorway, and I'll leave it at 50 kilometers an hour and accelerate to 80 kilometers an hour on straight surface. Let's go. Plop, that's it. It's already 85. So you see, even though it's a small engine, quite good performance, and we heard it also with the figures earlier. Pretty loud, this engine then, when it really gives you the RPM. Definitely when you're here on the motorway and want to start an overtaking maneuver, you can always use shifting pedals, shift down a gear or two, or shift up then with your right hand and hold it on the right pedal to get to the automatic shifting mode once again. Well, here in the sports mode, also suspension is a little bit stiffer and have a little bit more resistance in the steering wheel, if you, for example, prefer that. Usually for motorway driving, I would stick with the comfort mode. That's more, just more pleasing on the long-term drive. I always love this this inclination right here. That's pretty cool. And what's very interesting here, so let me set the cruise control, and I can set also distance to the car in front of me, for example. I can set the speed here. Slow click to increase by 1 kilometer, and harder click to increase by 10 or decrease by 10 kilometer steps. That's, I think, a very good solution. And I think the size is pretty decent, especially here, when it's a little bit narrow. That would be one argument, taking a smaller Mercedes, that you say, I still want this compact size. I don't want it to feel like, overwhelming or something. It's still very well and easy to handle. If you compare it now with the Mercedes C-Class estate, there's not much difference lengthwise. The usage of space is a little bit better because there's a shorter hood and there are no 6-cylinder engines under the hood. That's why we have more space in the rear in relation to the exterior of the vehicle. And as I said earlier, the estate trunk area is a little bit better to use than with the C-Class, however. So that might also be up to what concise deal you get maybe for your C-Class or for your CLA. But definitely a lot of Mercedes models, they have indeed become quite close nowadays. So at 80 kilometers an hour here, still feeling very solid. Also very silent in here. So that's also something they improved from previous generation to this generation. It's way more silent in here, and of course then about this digitalization. Let's see if the run off-road protection is working. So when I slowly get to the right, yeah, there we go. And this is the thing, some cars do that with steering, and I think that's actually better. You've maybe seen it. they do it here at Mercedes with the braking maneuver. But I was actually not shocked because I knew the car would start to brake. But if you haven't experienced it once and you get to the side of the road and you would expect the car, when it's now reacting, to countersteer a little bit, it's doing this harsh braking maneuver. Yeah, then you might be a little bit surprised and you think like, whoa, hey, what's happening? So yeah, I'm not so sure if that's the best solution. I prefer it when there's a smooth counter-steering process actually. We'll go back to the sports mode because now we'll head on to the motorway once again and then we'll floor this car out, talk about the high-speed handling and so on. I hope you guys also requested that because that's also the rare things we can do here in Germany and of course just on some motorway parts. So we'll get on right here. Do some flying start. There's no one behind us. Of course always safety first here. And I'll drop the speed just a little bit before we accelerate, before we get to a straight level. Maybe it's raising a little bit this road. So I'll drop it to 40 kilometers an hour. Let these two cars pass and then we can go safely. So 40 kilometers an hour and let's go. No. It's 150 kilometers. It's 180. That's 200. That's definitely enough. And quite impressive. I mean, it's not that loud here, and you're handling at higher speeds now. Really good. Very solid. Lane change at high speeds. Here we even do it a little bit faster. That's really very good. And of course this wouldn't be a standard speed, so let me bring it to like a normal speed, like when I'm like here 140, 130, no problem, on the brakes. Very good feeling in the brakes, I like that. So even especially like 130 kilometers an hour or something, very good noise insulation, so quite pleasing and really good brake feel, I like that. Now setting the cruise control once again. Now the tunnel, you can also see how it looks like at night. This car is not featuring the ambient lighting, which was also an option. Definitely a very fancy option. So yeah, I think I would go for that. And now to the active lane keeping assist. So when it's not the run off road protection, but actively keeping the car centered. So you're supposed to keep your hands on the steering wheel, but just showing you here now that the car is being kept in the lane, and actually that is working very well. So here there are no nervous reactions from the steering wheel, and we know that we've previously seen with the Volkswagen Touareg, for example, that it's still too nervous. The system has been upgraded, yes, but still too nervous. Here Mercedes have found a very nice setup to have this active lane keeping assist in a very smooth way. So I think this active system is very good. The run-off road protection, I think, should also rather be done with a steering wheel intervention. What you also see here, by the way, is that the realization of the car, if you have your hands on the steering wheel, is not done by a capacitive function, but you need to move the steering wheel at some point. So newer vehicles also offer the function that you actually can do that over a capacitive function, that the car is feeling it, you have your hands right there. Next time to sports mode, acceleration from 80 kilometers. So if you already have speed, let's go like 80 or to 150 or something. That might be nice, or 80 to 140 is enough. You can also see that, and then keep the higher speed. That's it. And again, let me put it to 130 because that would be a reasonable autobahn speed even in more countries than just only Germany. And I think that's very very calm, so a good traveling experience here also at more significant motorway speeds. I think that really also speaks for the vehicle. So I think if you compare it to the predecessor generation, of course you have a more spiced up interior with all the digital stuff here also you can do while driving. Voice input also helps you not to be distracted by the screens so much. And I think, sportiness is definitely there, maybe even a little bit sportier than before. There again, I need to move the steering wheel, that's the thing, not that good. I mean, it's not that like the predecessor generation was like, you cannot really say that it's super much different as for the driving experience. I think it's really like the interior stuff. That is what has changed most, Driving experience is, of course, somewhat different. If I would pick one, then I would say it's especially better on the motorway because it's a little bit longer than before, brings a little bit more calmness in the ride, and also the better noise insulation. This was really accounting for this better motorway feeling. And if you ask myself, C-Class Estate or the CLA here, the CLA of course looks more interesting design-wise. However, from the driving comfort for a tall person, I think I would still go with the C-Class Estate. And it's also more practical than to put stuff in the rear. But again, this is rather, I think, a design question if you go then for a CLA Shooting Brake, because it does have this pretty unique look. So different driving impressions we've shown to you here, all very interesting, and overall definitely once again a very solid performance in the driving part. And now to our conclusion for today with the Mercedes CLA Shooting Brake. First of all, it's a very special car indeed because it is a compact platform but already a mid-size size or length. There's the Kia Proceed that is somehow going in this direction now at a lower price, because that is one of the criticism points. It's a very high price for this one. You can also compare it internally with the Mercedes C-Class Estate. This one here with a shorter hood, better usage of space on the interior as for the rear legroom. However, this trunk area, of course, is somewhat a compromise also because of design form on the exterior. I really love this grey magno color here, this paint again once more. Other than that, the interior is very stylish, very clean. The MBUX voice input is very sophisticated, that's good. You get a lot of non-animal choices for the seating in a very high grade. This is also one of the great features of this vehicle. I think it's really about this unique stance in the market. There's not so much competition to this very car, to this very concept, and that's what's making it still stand out, and also in this generation. Changing from predecessor to this generation, I think especially that it's more calm on the motorway due to the longer wheelbase, also a little bit more, development, of course. So better noise insulation and so on. So digitalization and a little bit calmer, especially when running a little bit faster. I think the two main elements with this new generation. Fuel consumption is too high and price is too high. That's, two criticism points. Other than that, really good things we've seen here today with the Mercedes CLA Shooting Brake. I hope you really liked it, and I would like also you to tune in next time. Thank you so much.